weather seems really nice today. Lots of blue skies, still some clouds, although they're further north. And what's going on today? How about this one, where apparently it's a story of people, I guess, shooting down a drone because they thought, I guess, there was something suspicious with it. This one says, shouldn't have been there. Lifestyle block owner shoots down drone. As it says here, a lifestyle block owner shot down a drone over his Canterbury property because he feared it was being operated by a burglar. It comes as concerns grow over drones being used by criminals to case out homes and a rise in burglaries across Canterbury. A Lincoln resident who only wanted to be known by his first name Andy said a friend of his on a lifestyle blog on Old Tal Tapu Road shot the drone down as it hovered within 12 meters of his house earlier this month. So it does sound like it was based purely on fear, and it says it was a long way from the road, in the wrong place, and should not have been there, said Andy. I think probably the best option was taken. At the end of the day, if someone wants to fly one of those, there's plenty of parks and recreation areas for them. You don't have to be flying it over people's houses. He said since his friend shot it down using a firearm he had on the property for shooting pests, no one had come forward to ask where their drone was. That is so awkward because in a lot of places, actually the regulations are so over the top. They try to ban it everywhere, where ironically, the best place to take off is just, for example, on a public sidewalk or something like that, around buildings and stuff like that, just with the way a lot of regulations and stuff are. And it goes on to say, for example, the Selwyn residents, they keep expressing how they're worried these drones are being used by criminals. And at the same time, all these Facebook pages are saying there's been an increase of postings of people noticing drones hovering their house and all that. For example, this one says, it flew off when it saw someone outside, could have been innocent, but it feels a bit invasive at the time of morning, she said. There were 2 reports from women about the super weird experience of being followed by drones. One of the incidents happened in the reserve at Liffey Springs. I question again, how do you know 100% that those drones and stuff, they're spying on you versus the general hysteria, which has been really common in recent times? And it says, Canterbury police said late last year, drone activity was increasing in rural areas, but police told the Selwyn Times on Monday they were not aware of any recent reports of drone use in the district. It is against the law to fly drones at night over people or over private land. Is that true down there? Because in a lot of places, it's more about where you land and take off, for example, even though a lot of people keep saying stuff like this, oh, you're not allowed to fly over this airspace and so forth, when it's not true in many ways. And it does say here, the Civil Aviation Authority advises it is illegal to shoot down drones. Anyone concerned about drone use can contact the authority. If you feel endangered by a drone, phone 111. Is that the 911 down there? It makes you think too, because technically, they shot the drone down, they're kind of justifying it, but at the end of the day, they don't really have any, I guess, quote, proof that it was actually in any way trying to say spy on them or anything like that. And the fact that they shot it down and admitted to it, since most places they treat it again like an aircraft, shouldn't these people be fined or quote arrested, for example? Because shouldn't you take this just as seriously as if someone shot down an actual airplane, since all the regulations make every kind of drone, for example, like an aircraft? I know even like in the US, you have all those videos and so forth of FAA officials saying, you are not flying a toy, you are flying like a plane. Like, they make it sound so serious. So if that's the case, you can't have it both ways. You have to treat it as an aircraft, like in this case. It doesn't matter where it is in the world. If it's that over the top, isn't it? You have to be consistent. Otherwise, you'd have to go back to the drawing board and say, okay, maybe we've gotten a bit overboard with this. Because for these types of topics too, especially with things like the drones, when people have these types of hysteria and reactions, they justify it, oh, I'll shoot this down, who cares about an investigation? Just believe them, for example. You wouldn't say that about everything else, and usually when you bring it up to people, they have nothing to say afterwards, because at the end of the day, it is irrational to just immediately, like here, start shooting something without actually thinking it through. I mean, would people do that? If someone was driving a car or something like that, again, would the first thing come to your mind would be, I'm gonna shoot that car because I don't know who's in there? People wouldn't do that, would they? I mean, maybe in some crazy place in the world, but for the most part, you wouldn't do that. Although with that thought, in terms of crime and stuff, this was actually really interesting. I know I read in the news in the US on how there's been a lot more theft in stores where many places they had to close down. But how about this one? It shows a video here showing somebody, I guess, trying to rob a store, or well, he does, and the items are behind, I guess, some of those locked cases, and he just starts like what, torching it to opening it, and people are, I don't know, what would you do there? They're just filming it and so forth, and the guy just, I guess, walks away with the goods and all that. I would hope the police and so forth actually caught him afterwards, but what's going on for people to have this kind of mentality and confidence to just commit the crime? Is it really that bad where a criminal says, okay, there's no police officers around, or whatever, the punishment basically will be so minor anyways and I'll end up making more money? Like, is that the mentality? That's just kind of crazy to see people doing this. And still with that topic of crime, I guess, I saw this today, which was really interesting. It relates to this company called BlackRock, which I've heard more in recent times. From what I gather, they're some kind of investment firm, and they have, I guess, a piece in a lot of the companies in the world, like the really big ones. And people are saying because of that, they potentially influence those people or companies to do whatever they wish that benefits them. Well, apparently there was this undercover video. It was kind of interesting where the guy thought he was on a date and he started talking about all this stuff on how apparently the company pays people off. Like, for example, how easy it is to buy off, I don't know, politicians and so forth. He says so many things that people, I guess, in their mind often say, okay, that's gotta be the case. This person's being paid off. But to hear the person actually say it, it makes me wonder, okay, is this true and so forth? So you can hear some of the quotes, they're kind of crazy.
All of these financial institutions, they buy politicians. You can take this big ton of money, and then you can start to buy people. Off the banks, these guys want campaign financing. Yep, you can buy your candidates. And obviously we have the system in place. First there's the senators, and these guys are rich. You got 10 grand, you can buy a senator. Company called BlackRock. I'm not actually a finance guy. I know what happens because I'm recruiting people who do these things.
For business too, I mean, what's news? News, right? What does news feed on? They feed on strategy, they feed on top events. That's what people like to watch. So when it happens, it's good business. More viewers. When nothing's happening, watches news. I don't watch news.
They're all pushing like the same talking point. Like, you generally, when you look at news, like,
it's propaganda.
Now, the only other thing that's a possibility is this guy obviously thinks he's on a date, and the argument could be he's just lying, over exaggerating to impress the person. So that could be the argument, but usually I don't think people would say stuff like this unless there's some kind of, I guess, truth to it. But it's kind of crazy, again, to see stuff like this. And in that thought, in terms of criminal, if this is true, what's more important? Dealing with stuff like this, for example, or going after people flying the toy drones and all that? I mean, I'm surprised there's no, quote, hysteria over this. If this is like true, for example, wouldn't you want to really investigate stuff like this? Alright, see you guys later.